FinOps so interesting because it's very diverse. You meet all kinds of different people, get different specialities, experiences working together to make smart choices on how to invest money in IT spend or money in IT. And it's more than just cloud.
Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Taylor Hauk. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that actually drive action. Hello, and welcome to another episode of FinOps in Action. I am super excited for today's episode because I'm joined by someone who is not only a FinOps expert, but also a professional coach and trainer. He's an entrepreneur who's founded multiple companies. Most relevant for today's discussion, he's the founder of FinOps Academy, a training platform that enables organizations to optimize and manage their cloud spend. But he's not just a trainer, he's also a hands-on practitioner in his role as FinOps lead at Gasunie. Welcome to the show, Rense Siegmund.
Hi, nice to have me, Taylor.
Well, I'm super excited to be chatting with you today, Rense, because you've got a ton of experience across, hands-on FinOps roles to training and helping organizations get better. To kick things off, right, simply speaking, we've all been through a lot in our careers, especially someone as seasoned as you. What's something that you got wrong early in your FinOps journey?
What I got wrong is in what I see in if you talk FinOps, and for example, if you go to FinOps X or you go to FinOps Foundation Meetup, and you meet a lot of very experienced, technical, nitty-ditty, gritty, detailed guys and girls that are really into the tech details. And I was really impressed by that in the beginning because I don't have a very technical background. And I thought, FinOps is all about, it's all technical. And I learned later on that the technique and engineering is part of FinOps, but there's a very big part that is about how do you collaborate, how do you create a culture, etc., etc. So in the beginning, I was really maybe a little bit too impressed about the technical knowledge of others. And now I know if I ask them to help me on the technical part, they're really willing. And so I think that's what I think got wrong in the beginning.
It's a very interesting observation and one that you can play both sides, right? Because you really need both.
Yeah, you need both.
You can't have a successful FinOps program without understanding the cloud and the technical aspects of it, right? But if that's all you know, then you're not going to drive as big of an impact. I'm curious, in your FinOps Academy, what are the things that you're trying to drive when you're going in and working with your clients there?
What we're trying to drive with the FinOps Academy is we're trying to help organizations start with FinOps, but we're not going into that somebody takes over and does FinOps for the organization. We try to teach and help or coach organizations that they can do FinOps themselves. And probably one of the biggest challenges is that probably also the first principle in FinOps that teams need to collaborate. That's probably the biggest challenge for most organizations to get that going. For example, a proper discussion in between engineering and finance or business. What language do they speak? What value are we looking for, etc., etc. That's probably what we bring as FinOps Academy is common language, knowledge, and then we try to get it as actionable as possible. So something happens in the end, and in the action, that's where the magic happens for organizations.
It's actually a different approach than many service providers take, right? Because I've heard of a lot of teams or consulting companies that come in and they want to do right? Like fractionalize FinOps services for their customers and like own the FinOps discipline within a company. You're saying, no, I'm actually going to teach you to do it yourself. When you're doing that, who should lead it? Like, who is it that you want to hand the reins to that when you leave is going to drive this thing going forward?
Yeah, that's not always completely clear in the beginning. What's very important that there is a certain form of C-level buy-in. So if there's no C-level support, it's very hard to do. But if the minimum support is there, yeah, it sometimes needs to grow. And in our experience, if you grow this and you're enthusiastic about this and you challenge people to take up the reins to get going, people they put up their hand and say, hey, I want to be part of this, and then it grows, and then you can end up with a central FinOps team with maybe in a hub spoke model with different champions or ambassadors. But if the organization is smaller, it could be one or two guys that run the FinOps, and they have their ambassadors around the organization.
Where do those 1 to 2 people usually sit in the organization?
There always will be somebody that is involved in managing the platform or the cloud environment or something like that. So you need technical expertise. You need that in there. But also, we often see that there is somebody who's got soft skills to be able to talk to different personas. What we're always talking about in FinOps, and that are also feeling that they can go to different areas of the company and feel the freedom to talk to business and talk to finance and etc. And I often see that if you talk to engineering and to finance about the same subject, how you frame it as a FinOps practitioner can be really different. So I was talking to C-level, the Gasunie. We had a big opportunity to optimize for a lot of money. And for the CFO, he just was told by the board, hey, you need to save this much. If we would optimize this, he would already have saved the amount of, or it would have cleared the budget hole he had from the board. So that's a different approach than, of course, an engineering you would take. So so if you're curious what their goals are, what's the goal of the CFO, or what's the goal of finance, or what's the goal of engineering, and you can deliver the message that it fits within their goal, and it makes your story a lot easier.
Absolutely. I mean, in my experience, I've always found that being that person that kind of walks that line between finance and engineering, right? That has enough technical chops to work directly with engineers and build those relationships and not seem like an outsider, right? But also be able to go back to finance and seem like a peer to them as well. In my experience, it's worked well when they formally sit under engineering, so you can really like go deep into that peer relationship with the engineers, but you've got to be able to jump the fence and also work directly with the finance and the business as well.
And also, so in some organizations, you get a cloud center of excellence. So it's important they get a seat at that table as well. So FinOps becomes part of the core processes within the organization. But that's not normally where it starts. It starts off small and needs to grow. And then the trick is to get it embedded in the governance, etc., to give it a stronger body. Otherwise, it could well be a one-off cost saving, and I think FinOps can be a lot more for organizations than just that.
That's such a great tee up for where I wanted to go next, right? Because hey, how do you get started? You got this one guy or gal or a couple folks that kind of are part engineering, part finance. They can drive a lot of impact, but they're still just, hey, one person, two people. And even, a successful FinOps program is not even always about the FinOps team themselves. How do you get an organization to live and breathe FinOps?
Oh, this is probably the hardest question you can ask. I think in FinOps, it depends a little bit on the organization. So context is everything. Yeah, but if you are able to adjust the goals you have with FinOps, for example, in the OKRs of the organization, so it fits in with the strategy and it aligns with the goals the organization has, then it becomes easy because then you start speaking the same language as business and leadership does. That also makes it easier for engineers to say, hey, this is the bigger goal we are working for as a company. So if I do my engineering this and this way, I contribute to the bigger goal. That really helps to get your message across, to get that going. So, for example, at the Gasunie, Gasunie is a company that transports all natural gas within the Netherlands. Reliability needs to be trustworthy. It needs to work all the time. Certainly now it's winter. If it's not working, I'm sitting at home in a very cold house. Yeah. It's not always about cost. Reliability and those things are a lot more important than costs. And if you're talking that language, and also you can find opportunities where you can optimize and increase reliability, then it's very easy to get people moving.
How do you pull cost in as a metric though in that case where hey, reliability is paramount, right? We need to make sure that people stay warm. It's not a it's a fairly cold time of year for you guys, but that doesn't mean that there's no opportunities to optimize or to reduce costs, right? So how do you handle these seemingly in conflict priorities?
Now, what I try to do is talk to business on, okay, what is reliability for you? Is that on production level? Is that on acceptance environments or development environments? And the level of could be different on all of those. So that could also mean you make different choices, or it could also be the application is that part of the core reliability of the primary function of the Gasunie or not. And that could also be mean that the reliability on something that's not in the core function, and the reliability could be less. And then you can factor in the business case on those terms.
I've got a bit of a loaded question for you.
Shoot.
What is FinOps?
We have, of course, a beautiful definition of the FinOps Foundation. But I think if you boil it down, it is to get different specialities, experiences working together to make smart choices on how to invest money in IT spend or money in IT. And it's more than just cloud. So I think the scopes of on-prem licensing, how do I use SaaS solutions, they all come into play. But with the main focus is, okay, how do we get as much value out of the money we have to spend? Um, I think that's in the basics. That's it. And what a key thing is in FinOps is that we can make data-driven decisions that fit the strategy of the organization.
So it's not just about one decision or one application that you're balancing between, reliability and cost. It's broader than that.
I think it's a lot broader. And that also, in my view, that makes it FinOps so interesting because it's very diverse. You meet all kinds of different people. I sometimes say, hey, a FinOps guy is the canary in the coal mine. They know first if something is wrong, because or they see costs rising, or they know somebody's complaining about it, because you talk to everybody. So you're not just a techie guy, not just a finance guy. You're part of the whole community in an organization.
So I'm going to go back to the same or similar question about living and breathing FinOps within an organization. How do you scale it out from one person to many?
Yeah. And that's where we often have a role as the FinOps Academy. So you first need to get a common language in. So there needs to be something about uh, education, etc., etc. So people need to be taught. Okay, how does it work? And then you need to do it ASAP. Yeah, and I think the FinOps Foundation is doing a really good job in that. If you do, for example, the certified practitioner training, we have to inform, optimize, operate, and do that circle as quick as you can. So with minimal information, you can find a minimal optimized opportunity and execute on it straight away. And that's probably also the hardest thing in the beginning for beginning FinOps practitioners to do that. But if you have no FinOps culture, there's no practitioner, you can log into, for example, the Azure portal, see the first recommendation. So it's easy to find, see if it applies for you and execute on that. It could be buying a small savings plan, could be optimizing or removing an idle disk. So something really small, because behavior comes from repetitive small actions. So the sooner you get the first actions in the organization, the easier it becomes.
So let's actually drill into this a little bit, right? Because you talked to some very basic examples of cost optimization, right? These are the things that if you are very, very new to FinOps, you will find these things. But as you go along your journey, things are going to get more complex, right? You're going to pretty quickly understand deeply all of the recommendations that are given to you from your, your native provider tools, and then what's next. But before we go into what's next, I'm going to ask you, these people that you're bringing in, these people that you're training, number one, who are they and what are the skill sets that you look for? And then what is the path from a junior in that early days to someone who is running or in the advanced stages of FinOps?
I think the biggest thing is experience, is the difference between a junior and a senior in this case. Everybody says who is very senior in FinOps with 20 years experience is lying, because FinOps is not that old. Yeah. So what I'm looking for is people that are curious, that are willing to learn and are willing to fail, because everybody's going to fail at multiple times. And the trick is to fail fast, learn fast, and adjust. And certainly, if you're mostly focused on cloud, it's easy to adjust, because if you do something wrong or you get the infrastructure is not set up right, yeah, okay, you can just throw it away and build it again.
Yeah, hopefully that mistake wasn't a 3-year all upfront commitment.
Yeah. So, hey, fail fast. And also, if you do a 3-year commitment and you fail fast enough, you can probably renegotiate that with your vendor. But it makes it, of course, a lot harder.
Yeah, that's not a strategy I would recommend. But if you're early on in your FinOps journey, stay away from those 3 years until you're very confident.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. So in the end, if we close a big contract with a vendor for 3 or 5 years, sometimes multi-million deals, those are very common. Yeah, if you're talking about so much money, you have to know pretty sure what you're doing. So, but then you probably are not in the beginning stage of your FinOps journey. So I would recommend, so that if you're beginning in your FinOps journey and you're maybe closing your first enterprise agreement, okay, maybe reach out to somebody who's done that before and get some expert help, because yeah. If failing on that part is not, is failing really bad. And I think what I mean by failing is failing quick and small, so you can learn really quick.
I've got a quick and small failure from early in my FinOps journey that I can share if you're interested.
Yeah.
It's kind of relevant to what we were discussing earlier. So it was pretty early in my FinOps journey. This was like 2020-ish. And essentially the organization I was working for had very rapidly growing cloud spend, and I was asked to help them to optimize and reduce that spend. So we were primarily an AWS shop. So my first stop was Trusted Advisor. Trusted Advisor gave me a ton of recommendations for things that we could do. And I want to say the sum total was some, I don't know, call it $1 million a year, right? Of savings. So what do? I put it into a slide deck. I go to my manager and tell him, hey, we've got $1 million a year of savings opportunities ahead of us. And what does he tell me? Great job. Let's execute. Let's do it. Right. And then once you start along that path and you start meeting with the engineers and talking about the consequences of taking all these actions, you pretty quickly realize that not all of them are relevant or possible, right? And then now you're having to go back and explain, hey, I know I told you we were going to cut $1 million, but hey, that's not going to happen. At least not in these ways. So be wary of those recommendations coming out of the cloud native tools.
Yeah, so I recommend if we do that, for example, in a course and look at, hey, what can you find? I recommend, okay, maybe before you present this to C-level, maybe first divide it by half, and then say, okay, I think this could be potential what we're going to save, and then because your discussion becomes a lot easier if you under-promise and overperform.
I was gonna say under promise, over deliver. I mean, the only thing that makes saving $500,000 not very exciting is if you said you were gonna save $1 million. Then saving 500 is not good, right? But if you say you're gonna save 250 and you save 500,
Everybody's
now
happy.
everyone's happy.
Yeah. So and again, it's all about the narrative you create in the message you send. And I think that's what you need to be aware of. Who am I speaking to, and what's their narrative? What narrative are they keen to hear?
Rense, I wanna shift gears just a little bit. And where I want to go is I think that a lot of us that are deep in the FinOps world that have been around it for a while, we're very keen to the challenges that present themselves at enterprise scale, right? And I think that the reason for this is because big enterprises are the companies that can invest in these FinOps programs and have enough money that they really care. And then that's where we come from. We have enterprise experience. We know their challenges, but what do you see when you're working within maybe smaller organizations that are still struggling with these challenges?
Yeah, we see mainly two things. We see techie startups that are really, certainly if they don't have that much funding, that are really keen on bootstrapping and they take every penny they can save, they take it out. But if they grow, that culture of, hey, it's my own money, they tend to lose that. And then they need something of FinOps if they grow. We see investors in those in those startups. They are keen on, hey, can we optimize really in an early stage? Because if they sell the company again, every $100 saved will be 6, 7, 8 times that $100 in their sales price if they sell the company. So that's what we see on the startup side. So that's what's happening. And then we have a lot of organizations that are not a startup anymore. maybe also 10, 15, maybe 20 years old. They moved their on-prem to cloud, or they have partly on-prem, partly on cloud, but they're not spending tens of millions, but they're maybe spending 1 million, 2 million, 3 million a year. There's no sense of hiring somebody to be a FinOps expert, because the amount of money you pay for somebody to do that and the benefits you reap on the other, yeah, they're not there. And so we did some market research on that, and if you go into the numbers, you see about 60% of all cloud spend is made by smaller organizations. So they're the big spenders. They are, of course, the enterprises. We all know them, but the biggest part of cloud spend is in those smaller organizations.
What do you consider small? Like let's talk numbers.
Let's talk numbers. I think what are smaller organizations are the organizations that are spending between maybe 150K a year to 3 million.
Wow. 60% of all cloud spend is in folks in that size.
Yeah. They have limited knowledge. Some have, some don't. But if you then look at value again, oftentimes a big portion of their cost is in IT infrastructure. So if you can optimize on that part of their business, that will have direct impact on their margin, business value, etc.
Let's say that your cousin came to you and said, "Hey, Rense, I know you're in this cloud game thing. Hey, I had this startup. We started a couple years ago, and I just realized cloud spend is becoming a material part of our business. We're spending $1 million per year. What should I do?"
What should I do? Yeah. Do you know how you're spending it? That's probably the first question I would ask. And often the answer is, "Yeah, I get the bill from Microsoft, I get the bill from AWS. That's it." And the next question is, then the challenge becomes, okay, how can we provide those kinds of organizations with probably enterprise level insights, because that's what they need, without somebody who's able to to wrangle the data to give them the results. And I think certainly with AI, new tools, it becomes possible to give those organizations the insights they need to make decisions, but still you need to give them also some knowledge, and maybe not within them, but give them some guidance how to use those numbers to make smart strategic decisions on how they're going to use their infrastructure.
You know what's funny is that it's not all that different from what the big enterprises should be doing as well.
It's the same, but uh, we know different tools. Yeah, if you're spend for a lot of tool providers, if you're only 1 million in size, they're not willing to sell them their software to analyze because they think they cannot make money there. So how do you get and you're not going to it's a bit of a catch-22. The enterprise providers that can give you the insights, maybe in a plug and play way, say, "Hey, you're too small. I'm not going to sell it to you." And you don't have your own FinOps guy or girl that is going to give you the data. And then you're stuck as an organization. How are you going to solve that problem? And we are trying to solve that problem to say, okay, hey, we're trying to team up with bigger tool providers, and then we say, hey, if we combine 10, 15 smaller organizations, becomes interesting for a bigger tool provider financially, and we can say, hey, we do part of the data, the boring data stuff for you, together with the tool provider, and we provide you with the data you need to make the proper strategic decisions.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the small scale too, I mean, you don't even always necessarily even need a tool. I mean, you get a very you could grab like the CTO of these types of companies, right? Someone that's technically very intelligent, and you enable them with the knowledge in terms of how these billing mechanisms work. They have all the knowledge of the organization. I mean, at that scale, also, it's not like you've got thousands of resources across hundreds of accounts, right? Like your architecture is going to be relatively simple, right? But that being said, there's also sometimes, you know, some complexity in terms of no tagging, right? Or not understanding what each resource does and then not wanting to turn these things off. So it's the same challenge, but also a different challenge.
And the hard thing is, in a bigger enterprise, you have one context, you know what's happening, et cetera, et cetera. But every organization changes. So the hard trick will be, okay, how can I provide strategic information to a CTO, for example, to make the right decisions if I don't know the context of his organization? So I need to factor that in somewhere. So that's a challenge we're trying to solve.
And that's why it'll always be a partnership. Now, Rense, I've got another question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, right? You brought up the AI. You said the words, and now I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. What do you see? What is the impact of AI going to be on FinOps?
Now, I think there are two ways. One, AI will be a cost driver in IT, and that's something you have to deal with FinOps. It also gives you another layer of education. So, for example, I called one of the engineers and I said, "Hey, do you know you spent 250 euros yesterday on just AI calls?" He went, "No. Where can I see?" Because there's another layer of visibility needs to happen. So that's something you have to deal with. But I don't think that's the same thing as moving to cloud 10, 15 years ago is now happening, and we're moving to AI. So we need to adjust, and probably in a year or 2 years' time, everybody's used to that and will be okay data wise and visibility wise. The other thing is, I think a lot of the business as usual things I had to do manually in the beginning, I think a lot of those tasks will be taken over by my FinOps agent. I I need a TCO on a migration, and can you calculate that for me? And then 10 seconds later, it says, okay, yeah, no, this will cost this much and that much.
Yeah, I don't really see a world where cost reporting and cost allocation is not just a solved problem in very short order. Um, Hey, Rense, this has been an amazing episode. I feel that everyone that listened got an awesome opportunity to learn from a professional trainer and coach. But I know it's not just FinOps that you coach. I hear you are also a sports coach, perhaps even a master's in sports coaching. What's the story there?
And the story is that I, by trade, am a PE teacher. So I live and breathe sports. I did a master's degree in sports coaching when I was 35-ish, something like that. Uh, and it was really cool. Also, developing my own skills as a coach. And I often use these skills still in trying to get organizations or team to working together, because in team sports, you have a defender and a forward. If they are not working together, you're not going to win the game together. And those principles, yeah, they apply in business life. You can use them one on one.
Man, what a strong parallel. And again, Rense, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the next people you're going to speak to.
Absolutely. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in to another great episode of FinOps in Action. If you learned something today or you laughed a little bit, tell someone about the podcast. We'd love to, grow this thing and help you share it. But once again, thank you so much, Rense. It's been an amazing show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. This has been another exciting episode of FinOps in Action. See you next time. That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that actually drive action.